after 6 months of them being adopted, my two younger brothers started raping them. I knew what was happening. I had to have a lot of courage to go to my mom because she would never listen to me. It took a lot of like strength for me to like go and address this to her, but I did. I knocked on her bedroom door and she opened the door and she said, "Okay, you know you're not supposed to even ever knock on my door." And I was able to like spill out like what happened, and she's like leave. And so I just assumed that she took care of it, but she didn't.
Now, she's going to talk about the situation where she was nearly burned to death trying to save her mom. Then that is just the beginning of a lot of things that she went through. So there's a lot of personal things that she's going to talk about that may, trigger something in you. So please just be cautious, sit back, listen, and please share this podcast and like and comment. Please welcome today's guest, Avonlea Lightstone. You went through some trauma at a very, very young age. You lost your mother at the age of 3. In fact, you even tried to rescue her, to try to help her in the fire, but unfortunately, she perished. Then your father was unable to really support you as that young child, so you were placed in an orphanage, and then you ended up going through some mental and physical abuse, some trauma, but thankfully through this transformation of yours, through growth, resilience, and hope, you came out to be the person that you are. And I would imagine that's still a growing process, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it is. It's not like there's always going to be situation where things like triggers you and it still affects you. But as you go through a lot of healing process, it's easier to look at it in a different angle rather than like anger and resentment. So yeah.
And you are an author. You have a book called Strength of Scars.
Hmm.
And is that taking us through your early childhood life? And if it is, can you take us back to that time and walk us through the steps of what happened and what this resilience, and where did you find hope to carry on and move forward?
Yeah, like how you introduced me, like my story started at a very young age. So my book, Strength of Scars, starts at that time period. I was in India at the time, and my mom was cooking food, and her sari caught on fire. And I went to, like, I was the only child in the home. My siblings were at school, and my grandparents had taken my youngest sister out. And so when my mom was caught on fire, I went to try to wake my dad up, but he was unresponsive, drunk, and just wouldn't like um respond. So I just felt like I needed to do what was the best thing, and that was to take care of my mom. And I just went and hugged her without even thinking about it. I just went and hugged her legs as she was trying to push me away. And pretty soon I was engulfed in the flames with my mom.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So you can't tell right now because like my face and my front part of my body wasn't um, affected, and I think that was because my body, my face, and my front area was, like, pierced against her legs, and so I didn't get touched, but, like, my back and everything else was, burned, and then I was rushed to the hospital, and they had to clean the, fire, like, the debris off of my back, and that was worse than being caught on fire because in India at the time, we lived in a really poor area where people, where we didn't have like technology wasn't so advanced and we didn't have like the numbing agents to help numb a lot of the pain that I was going through. But it had to be done. They had to scrub the shirts that was burned onto my, like the clothes that was burnt onto my skin, just had to scrub that off. And that was really painful. That was worse than the fire itself, especially like as soon as your body is gone through some traumatic like event, it kickstarts and wants to go into hyper healing mode.
Mm.
And that's what my body was doing. And I could feel the oxygen coming into my skin. And oh my gosh, that was so painful, just the scrubbing. And I was wishing, like, hey, I want to be back in that fire because there's a point when you're in the fire that the fire just numbs the nerves and you can't feel it anymore. And so to me, it's like if you hit that part, that at least it's tolerable after that. But when you're cleaning your wounds, that's a lot worse because your body is just really trying to heal, but then you have the oxygen has this burning sensation on your skin. And so as soon as I then recovered from um was cleaned up, I was then had to lay on my stomach because I wasn't burned on my stomach, and I just had to allow time to heal me over time. And my mom, she didn't make it. She passed away 3 days later, and my dad stopped showing up at the hospital when she passed away. And so I felt a lot of rejection at that point because I didn't understand what was going on with me and why I was in the situation I was in, why I wasn't being comforted. And in that moment, I really needed my family, and they weren't there. Um, and this is where I get asked a lot of times, like, how do you remember so well? And
Yes.
I believe it was that moment when my dad rejected me from coming to check up on me and see me. I took everything in, because you're by yourself. Nope, like the nurses can only do so much because they have all these other patients that they have to take care of. So I'm just laying on that cot, air drying, um, or trying to heal really, while I was taking in everything in my family, my siblings, what had happened to me. I was just honing a lot of that memory, and I think that's how I was able to keep in so much memories of what happened.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you this because, and please, if there are questions that I ask that are too difficult to answer because it brings up some emotional, memories,
Mhm.
please feel free not to answer. But I was wondering, as a 3-year-old that this happened to, that you have such um, vivid memories of this and the pain, and as a 3-year-old knowing what you're going through is amazing, but also to me somehow um, resilience is like innate.
Mhm.
But there are certain things, traumas that allow us or force us to tap into that. Do you think that's part of what happened to you?
Yeah, I think, like, nobody is, like, prepared for any tragedy that comes to them,
Hmm.
and it's kinda amazing what your body is equipped with, like, instinctual, like, with me, what had happened, I think your body just knows you just know what to do, and it just goes into, like, almost a survival, mode, and you don't have any other choice but be resilient. Like, I felt like that, like, there's no other choice but to take in, like, the good things and to keep going.
And I don't want people to go, oh, this must have happened in the 30s or 40s when there wasn't a
Yeah.
whole lot of technology and she was in the poor part of the neighborhood. But it was not that
Yeah,
far
so I
back.
was born in the late, 1980s. So it was around, yeah, 1990.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So,
just
yeah.
wanted to make sure people know that, you know, these things still happen, has happened, and your resilience, and it takes time to go through things, uh, to heal, to get better. And I believe, did faith play much into this for you?
Yes, yes, it did. So I think I was really fortunate. I don't know, like, my mom and my parents, my biological parents, they were Catholic. like devout Catholic that my mom had named I had 8 siblings, no, 9 siblings, 1 boy, and 8 of them were girls. And all of us girls were named after Mother Mary, whether it was their middle name or like the church, like Mother Mary, like some distinction of Mary was in our name. And so I felt that we were deeply um, involved in that church because when I got out of recovering from the hospital, that's the first thing I went is to the church to pay respect to my mom. And I remember being in my blue underwear like Mowgli and nothing else because I was still healing and kneeling down in front of this Mother Mary's statue and just paying respect. And then my dad placed me up for adoption right after. Uh,
Mm,
and then I would get adopted into a family where, even in that family, we were adopted into a religious home, LDS. And so we were taught a lot of the values of that church and how families can be together forever. And just a lot of the doctrines was really good. And I think what really stood out to me was knowing that um, God existed and that you can have a relationship with him and you can talk to him anywhere. Just having those 3 things is what really helped me. I didn't really care about anything else. I just wanted to know, like, there was something after life and that and I think God really did comfort me during those times when I was being abused and I would cry myself to sleep. He just, like, allowed me to know that I will see my mother in heaven one day. I will, things will come at this time, it's gonna be heavy, but things will line up and, just hang in there. And so as I build a relationship with God, um, I realize now as I'm older, I see just how much he played a big part in my life. He was my protector in many ways. There was a lot of situations I probably shouldn't have survived, but I did, and it was just because I was very fortunate knowing that God was in my life and that I just gave everything to God, like I talked to him like he was my father.
Um, did some of this abuse come from, the adopted family in that situation?
Yeah. So
Uh,
it was my adopted mother that was emotionally, physically, mentally abusive. So when I first was adopted, it was easy for me because we were groomed in in the orphanage to be prepared for our families in America. So we were groomed, we were ready, and so when we saw other people taking these kids and being adopted into their family, we saw the excitement in their new family, and so it just kinda, like, got us to be excited for our family in America. So when I was adopted, like, I was all in, like, I was I didn't forget about my family in India, I just left them behind because I knew that I would never have them again, and I accepted my life and accepted my parents as my new parents, and everything was going well, and I also was adopted with 2 of my other biological siblings with me, and one of my siblings did not like it. She did not like, because she was older, and she didn't like that the situation she was in because she had her family in India, and she was fine and everything was okay, but then, she didn't quite understand what was happening when she was adopted, and, m her and my mom didn't do so well. They didn't, like, click right away because my sister did not see my mom as her parent, and then my mom really had a hard time helping her um get like she didn't understand how to help her, and she didn't get the help that she needed as a parent. And this is where I think adoption agencies really need to help educate parents that want to adopt kids, like older children,
Mhm.
how to be able to navigate and help influence these kids. It's going to take time. There's going to be a lot of pressure. But my mom didn't have that. And then it was when she saw that my sister was not willing to just surrender herself to just allow her to be her parent, my mom started abusing us. And she started molesting my sister in front of me, which was really hard for me. And it's- I had a hard time learning English very easily. Well, like we picked it up, the language really fast, but it was really hard to grasp like a certain subject because I had like 8 different dialects before I came to America, and so I was juggling so many different languages, and it was just really hard. And then so I didn't manage really well in school for the first part of my life, and my mom would take me and, like, my teachers would tell her, like, "Hey, she's struggling in school. I think she needs to stay back and allow me to tutor her." It took her a little while for my mom to accept some of my teachers to tutor me. So whenever I went back home after school, she would take me down in the basement and I would have to do more homework. And I felt like she would give me homework on like 2 grades higher than the level that I was at. And she wouldn't explain the concept to me. She would just tell me, like, hey, you're behind. You need to do this work. You're not going to eat. You're not going to come and play upstairs. You're just going to stay down here until you can get the work done. So I didn't know how to do it. I would just cry and cry and cry. And eventually it would trigger her enough to put me away in my bedroom for 3 days at times where was punished. That was just a form of punishment, and I just wouldn't be able to eat for 3 days or drink water, so some of my siblings would sneak in and bring some food to me, but yeah, that was some of the abuse that, I went through.
I wanna add, I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that, but isolation is probably one of the worst types of punishment that you're gonna have, just keeping you away from people and everything else, and I would imagine that at that early age, you begin to think if it's your fault or why don't they love me? Doesn't anybody love me kinda thing.
Mhm,
At that point, did it make you reach out more to your faith? And like you said, you were brought up first in a, Christian family, right? Was it
mhm,
and then, Latter-day Saints, LDS,
yeah.
family that you moved into in America. Um, and I'm not versed in, religion, but was there a conflict for you, or did you just know God is God and God is love and you're being protected? Or
Yeah,
how did that come about for you?
yeah, that's a great question. I'll answer like the first question that you talked about with isolation. Yes, isolation is probably like one of the worst kind of abuse one can go through because in those moments and dark moments, you start attacking yourself, sabotaging yourself, thinking you're not good enough or like what's wrong with you,
Mhm.
and that you're not worthy to be in this world. And so, and that mindset really got me to start thinking about committing suicide many times because I was isolated a lot. And I think my mom knew that was like a way that I took in a lot of my punishment, and it was easier for her to abuse me that way. Whereas with my other siblings, other ones had to be more physically abused in some ways, if that makes sense. So going off of your second question, Um, this is where I question the church a lot,
Okay.
even as a young child, is I really liked a lot of the truth that and the teachings that they had, knowing that, hey, you're one of the prominent teachings that in the LDS church is you get sealed in this temple and you'll be a family forever in the afterlife. And just knowing that, knowing like, hey, having a family that loves you, cares for you, just seems so like magical. But I didn't understand the concept is like we would go to church every single Sunday, and my mom was really well known in the church, and she did a lot of like service. A lot of people appreciated a lot of her work. So she did a lot of great things for the church. But when she was not around the face of people, she was a destruction. And I just couldn't understand
Mhm.
why you could be that kind of person and live and a lifestyle that you go to church and hey, you got to obey God, but you're just being hypocritical and knowing like learning that God is all perfect and He wants your love and He wants to give love. It didn't make sense to me. I couldn't fathom like how if we're trying to be like Him, like how can you be the opposite?
Yeah.
How can somebody abuse a child, especially one that completely lost the entire family, and then trying to be in a family, you're just hoping like you're going to give that child a better life. Um, and so I questioned that a lot, but I knew in my heart that it was my mom.
Mhm.
Like whatever my mom was going through and the choices that she was making, it was her. And that wasn't God, because God, He is perfect and He is full of love. And if you go to Him, He can provide that. Because I felt that. I felt that off of Him. And so so what had happened after that was I just did my very best to not socialize with my mom or not be around my mom, just so then my
Which
punishment wouldn't be as hard.
you're in the same house, under the same roof, so that had to have been very tough. About what age were you really starting to think this way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was probably around 8 years old. I was
Um,
pretty young because it was really about survival, knowing that my dad rejected me in India, and then coming to America, knowing that my mom was rejecting us. I didn't want, I I didn't like confrontation, and I definitely wanted to please her. So I was always finding ways to please her, doing dishes, cleaning up. But even when I was doing those things, that was triggering her. Like cleanliness triggered her. My mom was a hoarder. She hoarded
Mm.
a lot of things, and um, I would keep my room clean, and she would just come up and just rip everything out of my closet, throw my bed like to the side and say, "Clean your room." So then I'd have to stay in my room all day cleaning my room. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
did you grow up in this family your entire childhood, or were you reintroduced to another family at some point in time?
Nope. I was I was in that same family my entire like life of my youth. We did try to like some of my siblings did try to talk with other people about what was happening. Like I use this as an example because it's pretty extreme. My parents had adopted 14 children. And by the time, yeah, I know, 14
What?
children. And the cycle and the patterns repeated the same way. So they had adopted 3 boys by the time, like, I was adopted, they were already graduated, and during that time that they were raising these 3 boys, there was that golden child, that there was, the boys that were being abused too. And so when I wrote this book and couple of my brothers read it, my older brothers, they're like, "Hey, I didn't realize you went through the same thing. I thought it ended with me." But yeah, so there's a lot of things that happened with them that happened with me. And then my parents a- adopted the rest of us kids.
I'll say this: it amazes me how you refer to them as your parents, like they were your biological, um, which
Yeah.
I may be so wrong on this, but it just to me seems like you have this such an open, loving heart that that's all, and that's how you saw them as that's my mom and dad, and you
Yeah.
still do. It seems like.
I do. Okay, so my dad was just amazing guy. And I think he was abused in his own ways emotionally because my mom threatened him because we grew up on a ranch, and my mom threatened him a lot of times that she was going to divorce him
Mm,
if he interfered. And so, like, there was a lot of things that he couldn't like help us out with because he really worked hard to get that ranch. And if anything, he always said that he didn't want us kids. He's like, "I don't want your kids, but your mom was the one that wanted you guys." But he was the one that ended up loving us, and that is what brought a lot of light into our home was, because of our dad.
wow.
Um, and my mom oh, yeah, the story I was going with that last, one was my parents had adopted 2 other kids after they adopted, me, and, after 6 months of them being adopted, my 2 younger brothers started raping them, and I remember, like, going into my m I knew what was happening. I had to have a lot of courage to go to my mom because she would never listen to me. I was always in trouble for anything, so this was really it took a lot of, like, strength for me to, like, go and address this to her. But I did. I knocked on her bedroom door and she opened the door and she said, "Okay, you know you're not supposed to even ever knock on my door." And I was able to like spill out like what happened and she's like leave. And so I just assumed that she took care of it, but she didn't. And so my sister ended up getting urinary tract infection because my brothers kept raping them. And they ended up one of my sisters ended up getting um, like bowel movements, and she would wet the bed at nighttime, and it was because of what was happening, and this was really sad. My sister my mom wouldn't take care of her bedding, she would tell her, "You need to take care of it, you need to clean your bedding out," and so she started doing that, and my mom was like, "You can't do it, you gotta do it in the bathroom." But then she wasn't teaching my sister how to clean her bedding properly. She wasn't teaching her how to, like, clean the bathroom after she was done properly, and so she would just, like, leave, like, this residue, like, pee smell, and so my mom was finally was like, "You're going out in the creek, and you're gonna wash those clothes before you go to school." So we would get up at, like, 5 in the morning and she was out washing because she peed her bed. She would have to go out there, wash her sheets out even in the winter. Um, and and that was really, really hard to experience. And that was what was happening in our home. And yeah, nobody came to check up on us to
And you
see
were
if
all
we were
kids. Everybody's still relatively young.
hmm yeah. Like, my mom babied kids that she adopted that were babies, and she cared for them, and they were against, the older kids that had memories of our family in India. So, we were always fighting for love, for a mom, and we would put each other down to try to get any sort of like breathing room of attention. It was pretty pathetic and pretty sad, honestly.
Wow. I want to let folks know that I'm having a conversation with Avonlea Lightstone, and you can go to her website, and it's Avonlea Avonlea Lightstone. It's Avonley, correct? Avonlea.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is an incredible story, and we're just talking about some of the things that happened to you, which is in your book, Strength of Scars. So, um, what do you hope that the readers take away from your story?
That we all have a story, and it doesn't matter like if somebody's story is more extreme than yours. Like if you've gone through pain and hurt, they are valid. And if you're breathing and you're surviving, like don't look at the scars in your life as something that holds you back, but see it as bravery and strength and keep moving forward, persevere knowing that, hey, your story can be an impact for other people and your future generation because you don't want, here's the thing, if we don't fix the things in our life and we just hold it against within ourselves, what usually ends up happening is we end up passing it onto the next generation and just becomes a pattern. And we don't want to do that. So always go inward, fix what's happening, find the help that you need, get that healing that you need. So then you don't pass it on to your children. And then that way, the childrens can look back at your story and see just how strong and powerful you are. And I use my story to just motivate people to keep moving forward and keep shining.
Very wise words and thoughts. How are you doing today?
You know what? I am doing really good. Um, I just feel like there's so much like healing when it comes to like allowing God into your life. Like, you know how I told you I was suicidal?
Hmm.
Once I forgave my mom, and I gave all my worries to God, God took away my suicidal tendency and a lot of the triggers of what happened. It doesn't like hurt me anymore. I'm not enabled by my past. Instead, I use the past as something that helps motivate me and it humbles me to treat other people with kindness.
This might be a difficult question to answer, not because it might be emotionally difficult, but just difficult in itself. And it is, how do you find forgiveness? What does it take? What is forgiveness? Because you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I forgive the person." Does that
Mhm.
mean to forget?
No.
Forget that
On
it ever happened? Or what is this forgiveness? What is it?
Yeah, that's such a tricky process. And what came to me was forgiveness is really just an individual base between you and God. It's not like one thing fits everybody because everybody has a unique perspective. They have a unique lifestyle. No one is completely the same. So your forgiveness process is going to be completely different. For me, um, I, what I had to do is went in, recognize what was happening, and not be in denial and face the fears up front and then, realized, like, because a lot of times I was hiding my mom. Like, I didn't want my mom to look like a bad person
Mm.
because, nobody wants their family members to look like a bad person, especially where I was adopted. People would say like, "Hey, you be grateful, your mom is great." And it just made you just feel even worse about yourself in the situation. And so, yeah, so I would just hide that a lot of the times, but really in reality, like when there's abuse, abuse is you being used. And you just got to face that and you got to face that the person that abused you, they harmed you for a reason to hurt you. And once you understand that, and you don't want to let it impact you, what I did is I was writing a lot down, and that's when I started writing that book. And I also was reading a lot of self-help book to help heal. And then I think with me is I had to go talk with my mom. I give her a chance to recognize the faults that she was doing, to hopefully let her be aware, like, okay, I gotta fix this. This was not okay. Maybe like say sorry to some of these kids, but she didn't. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm still grateful to be adopted. I'm still grateful to have a chance that I went like experience this because I've grown a lot from it, but I don't need to be in your life and that's okay. I could still forgive you and still move on. I don't need to have you hold me back. And once I like recognized that and I gave the rest of the burdens to God and said, you know, there's nothing I can do, like no changes I can do for my mom is going to help me, then he took that away and I was able to move forward and I'm in a good place. Yeah, you're going to still have moments where things kind of like bother you, like feeling like lonely and not feeling loved, but you know, those are just you're gonna get through it. It's easier to get through.
Yeah. It's it's a fleeting, it's a passing moment.
Mhm.
And like I said, you move on.
Yep.
Um, thank you, thank you very much for walking us through what you went through, just so everybody out there can understand and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to use that phrase because that's hope, right? That's hope.
Mhm. Yep.
So you're giving a lot of, I think, viewers, a lot of readers, a lot of listeners that hope. So again, thank you, Avonlea Fatima Lightstone.
Thank you.
I had to throw all that in there. But no, in all seriousness, this has been, I think, a very um, helpful and meaningful episode. So, and I wish great success to you and your book. What do you have in the future for you?
I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm working with possibly a producer to kind of produce this into a maybe a TV series. We'll see. Um I don't know. I think it just share my story, meeting amazing people and seeing what how they're doing and how my story is impacting them. That's just rewarding in itself.
Yeah.
And I just wait for the future. Like, you know, it's just unknown, but I just have to be ready and I'm waiting for that good news to
Well,
come out and stuff.
you come on back whenever you want to fill us in, keep us up to date, especially
Okay.
if you're going to have a little mini series of sorts, so we know where to catch the story.
Yeah,
So,
awesome. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Well, Avonlea, once again, thank you very much. Thank you for stopping by today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chuck. It was a pleasure being on your show.